It all starts with those two words, Tim Hasselbeck, player safety. It's the mantra of the league.
Well, and that, I think that has more to do with this than anything else. Now, we can look at these suspensions and say, wow, it was too severe or wasn't severe enough or whatever you may do. Say, well, hey, this guy was suspended because he actually put money on the table, or this guy was suspended because he benefited the most from this system or he helped implement the system. The reality is this, and Chris Mortensen said it, and he's exactly right, is that it is now putting the NFLPA in a very tricky spot because the NFLPA obviously wants to protect its players. The NFL is saying, well, hey, we're protecting players because we're punishing the guys that were trying to injure some of your players. So now the ball's in your court. How are you going to try to defend those guys when we talk about an 18-game regular season? You say, whoa, 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 we're for player safety. And that's exactly, this is a game that's been played. I mean, let's face it. You know, Commissioner Goodell was going to rule on this and was going to do this, but he also played a game throughout the process of this, basically putting it in the NFLPA's hands in delaying his decision for the punishment, and then also in his statement, he again invited the union to provide recommendations on how best to promote fair play, player safety, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, that's what it is. Now a league-wide initiative is announced about teaching safe and fair play. That's what is going on here. It is as much a challenge to the NFLPA as it is just about the involvement of these Saints players in this bounty program.
Well, we know there's lawsuits involved by former players, and we can't overlook that's part of the reasoning for the wording we're seeing here and going forward. But don't you think he's also saying, listen, you guys need to get together and figure out how you want to conduct yourselves on the field to help prevent future injuries?
There's no doubt. But at the same time, Bucci, I think we have to be aware that, and whether this was more extensive in New Orleans than other places, you can debate all that. It was on 8 different teams. This is not the only place that something like this happens.
Right.
Okay, this wasn't a vacuum in New Orleans. Part of the culture for a game, in the game for a very long time. 16 games for Jonathan Vilma. There's no doubt an example is being made because of the evidence that the league obviously had. But I think we also have to be aware that this isn't just about the Saints. This is also a game being played between the NFL, the NFLPA, and how they're going to address this player safety issue with the things that you mentioned going on with lawsuits, as well as debate over 18-game seasons and all of that.
Again, Fujita, Hargrove, and Smith may participate in off-season activity, including preseason games. Each player disciplined is entitled to appeal the decision within 3 days. If an appeal is filed, Commissioner Goodell would hold a hearing in which the player may speak on his behalf and be represented by counsel. And the question is, will this be private counsel? Will it be the PA?
Well, I think that's the predicament that the PA is in. And the NFL knows exactly what they were doing in putting the PA in that position. And so it's been one of those things that the NFLPA has recommended to these players that they get private counsel for their representation. And I think that at the end of the day for these guys, when you're talking about 16 games and the amount of money that Jonathan Vilma is going to lose, or Hargrove in 8 games, it's a lot of money. And your opportunity to make that money in the NFL, it's a small window. It's not a large window to make that money. And so I think players are going to exhaust all of their options, and I'm sure that private counsel is a big part of that.
And again, the question is, in the end, do you feel that obviously this eliminates any type of bounty program you would think in the league? This is obviously, people are not going to play around with this. Will that prevent injuries?
Well, it's not going to prevent injuries. Listen, it's not going to prevent injuries. It's a collision and contact sport. That's I mean, listen, guys get suspended for using drugs. It doesn't eliminate drugs from the game. You would think that it would eliminate bounty programs, around the National Football League, but there's no guarantee of that. But I think there's no doubt that there should be an effort to eliminate it. But this isn't going to make it. This isn't definitely going to close it out, I can tell you that.
And then finally, kind of wrap this up with Tim Hasselbeck. How do you think the union and their leadership, what do you think they're going to talk about now? Obviously, I'm sure there's meetings right now, conference calls, getting together.
Well, and I think they've kind of showed their hand in this, is they're going to talk about a coaching staff who was instructing players to do these. I think that has to be your approach. And you have to say, well, listen, if you're a guy who's trying to make a team, or you're a guy who is trying to win favor of your defensive coordinator or your head coach, you're going to do what he asks you to do. And a lot of times it may not be what you want to do, but you're going to do what your superior is asking you to do. I don't think there's any question that's going to be a large part of the defense that these players end up trying to use.
Well, we can see why now Roger Goodell waited. We had the NFL draft. It's a great celebration. We have a couple days to wrap up and get Mel Kiper Jr.'s view about the draft.
To that point, if you wanted to bury this, this would have come on the Thursday before the draft so that you talked about the draft. We're now sitting here in the middle of the week, and we're going to talk about it all week, and we're going to get a real good look at what the NFLPA's response is. This was calculated as well.